Hi, welcome back to the CAD series for beginners. Today we'll do some more basic line work in LibreCAD and we'll make a start at building Bodiam. Hi, I'm James. But today we're going to continue with our CAD series for beginners and we're going to look at some more of the parts for Bodiam Station before later on in the episode having a go at physically building some of those pieces from laser cut parts. Now during the tutorial section I'll try and cover a couple of questions that have come through the comments section as well, which will be very interesting, so do please keep them coming. Anyway, let's get on with it. By way of a recap, I'd like us to reconsider this outer wall for Bodiam Station. Now we had a sort of a look at this last time, but what I've done is I've changed some of the measurements a bit to simplify it. And I'd like us to consider the drawing method that we're going to use. So for example, there's quite a bit of complex laying out for the windows and the doors. And I'd like us to consider a simplified technique for doing so by referencing the centre lines of these architectural features. So we've got vertical centre lines shown with red dashed lines running vertically on the drawing, and this red dashed line represents the horizontal centre line of the windows. Now something I must mention is that the top of the windows and doors are all exactly the same height. Now normally you shouldn't assume that sort of thing off of a drawing, even if it looks to be the case. However, take it from me, they are all perfectly lined up. And by telling you that rather than putting the measurements on the drawing, I keep the drawing a little bit simpler. Anyway, there's all the information on here we need to go about recreating the drawing in LibreCAD. So let's do that. Oh, one other thing I must mention, this building is symmetrical around the vertical centre line. So over here on the top left hand side where I've got measurements of 14mm, 23 and another 23 between these centre lines. These measurements you can assume they're reversed here, so we've got 14, 23 and 23. The only reason I've left them off is just to simplify the drawing. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so I've imported that drawing into LibreCAD and we'll have a go at recreating it. So the first thing we'll do is create the outer rectangle. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this. I'm going to use the method I showed you last time. So I'm going to select a vertical tool first of all. I've already preset the length to 42mm, which corresponds with the height of the building, and I'm just going to drop a line in here. I'm going to roughly line it up with what we've got above. I'm then going to choose my horizontal line tool, and we're going to put the width of the building in, which is 120mm, and we can pop this on. Now if I zoom in, we can try and line it up, but it's going to be inaccurate. Remember what I said previously, we don't want to do anything that's inaccurate. So in the bottom left hand corner I'm going to choose the tool Snap on Endpoints, and that will allow me to snap precisely on the end of that line. In fact, I can do the same down here as well. Okay, I'll go back to my vertical line tool, and that's the rectangle drawn. Now that might seem a bit long-winded and convoluted, but it's a lot quicker to do it without talking about it. Okay, the next thing I think we'll do is we'll consider these vertical centre lines that run down through the centre lines of the windows and these doors. And I think to do that we'll use the offset tool. So for this next part of our drawing then, we'll create these centre lines, and we'll do this by changing the line colour and the line style to this dashed line. So the line colour can be found here in this little drop down menu, and we'll choose red. And if we look here, line type, down here we'll go for a dash. Let's go for small dash. Okay, so let's offset this line here, this vertical line, by 14mm. So the first thing we're going to do is select that line, and it becomes highlighted with the dashes. Come to the offset tool, select the offset tool, and in the distance at the top of the screen here we need to make sure that says 14 millimeters. Hit enter, and down the bottom of the screen it specifies direction of offset, so we can go to the left or we can go to the right, so we're going to do just that. Whilst we're at it, we may as well select the right hand line, offset. We've already got that distance programmed in because it remembers it from last time, and we can put a direction of offset in like so. Now our next offset measurement, is 23 millimeters, so we're going to select that line, same process again, offset, in the distance we're going to put 23, and again we look down here and it tells us to specify the direction, so do we want to go to the left, or in this case the right. It's as simple as that. So we select the line, offset, we've already got the 23 millimeters in, there's our direction of offset. And whilst that line is highlighted we can choose offset again, and we can offset that. So we've put in our geometry, our vertical geometry was quite straightforward to do. So we can now put the centre line for the windows in. So let's select that line, we'll use the offset tool once again, and we'll offset by 25 millimeters. And there we have it. We've got the basic geometry for our building all drawn up. That didn't take long. So the next job is to recreate the window and door openings on our new layout. We'll begin with looking at just the centre window, which is 14 millimeters wide and 18 millimeters high. So if I zoom in, this is our centre point for our vertical axis, and this is the centre line for the horizontal axis. Now before we draw anything, I'm going to change my line colour back to black, and I'll change the line style to a straight line, a continuous line. So I'm going to select this line, hit the offset tool and set an offset distance of 7 millimeters, and I'm going to select the direction of the offset to the left of that vertical centre line. And we can repeat that process by highlighting that centre line, hitting offset, the distance remains the same, and we'll specify the direction of the offset to the right. So that's got our vertical sides of the wall, of the window. What we now need to do is put the top and the bottom in. Now the window is 18 millimeters high, so it's 9 millimeters above and below this horizontal centre line. So I'm going to select the centre line, hit the offset tool again, and we're going to put a distance of 9 in, and I'm going to select above the line. I can repeat that process. Below the line, and there we go. We've got our basic line drawn, but we've got some excess pieces of line which we need to trim away. So let's recover how we do that. So to remove the excess lines we need to use the trim tool. So we select our trim tool, and it'll ask us down here in the bottom of the screen in this kind of prompting box, and it's worth always checking what it says here. It says select limiting entity. So just as a recap of what we looked at in the last part of this video, or the last part of this video series, we select that as the limiting entity, and it now asks us to select the entity to trim. Well, this is the line we want to trim, so we will select that line and it trims away the piece above, and we can also do the same here. So it's as simple as that. So we can now trim by the bottom, selecting this as our limiting entity, and we can select those two lines and trim those away. And this is a process that we can repeat to trim away all of the bits that we no longer require. And if I zoom out, we can see we've got our first window complete. So having created one window opening, we don't need to repeat that process. What we can do is use the copy tool to repeat this one over here on the left, and we could, if we want, over here on the right too. So what I'm going to do is select those lines just by left clicking and dragging a box over them. And now over here under the modify menu we have the move/copy command. If I select that, down the bottom here in this little box it'll ask me to specify a reference point. So what I'm going to do is choose this snap tool here, snap intersection, and I'm going to deselect that endpoint tool. So snap the intersection, and I'm going to choose the intersection of this horizontal centre line and this vertical line here. Having done that, I'm presented with a little red circle on the intersection, and down the bottom of the screen here it asks me to specify a target point. Now I can specify anywhere I like, but I'm going to keep that intersection tool locked in, and I can drop the window there. Now at this point it asks me, do I want to delete the original, in which case this would be a simple move command, or keep the original, or produce multiple copies, in which case it will just keep tiling these across the screen. In this case I want to keep the original, so I select that one and click OK. So now I've got two windows. Now that may seem a long-winded explanation, but it's actually quite quick once you've got the hang of it. Okay, let's have a look at the door next. So the door, I'm not really going to talk you through this much, I'll whiz through it as quickly as I can. It's just using the offset tool just as we did before. It's the same offset distance of 7mm. Oh, I've done that wrong. I specified it on the wrong place. Let's do that again. 7mm. This time I want to come to the right of there. Now I select that line, offset 9 above, and I can use the trim tool now, just as we did before. Did that wrong, let's do that again. Trim away those two lines. And we're going to trim this one as well. Okay, so now I can select that door. I can use the same copy command that I did previously, and I can keep going. And I can put that window in as well. However, on this occasion I'm not going to do that, and in fact I'm going to delete half of the window that I have previously drawn. So I can show you another tool. Now I've got one window here, I've got my left hand window, I've got my left hand door, and I've got half of this centre window. So what I'm going to do is select those, and I'm going to choose the mirror command, which is this one here. And now it asks me to specify the first point on the mirror line, which would be this intersection here. Now I've still got my snap intersection tool on, so I can snap there. And down the bottom it asks me to specify a second point on the mirror line, which would be the bottom of this vertical axis. Again, it will ask me, do I want to delete the original, in which case it would be a kind of a mirror and a move, or keep the original. So I want to keep the original. Click OK. And there we go. There's our front wall of our building drawn. So then, by way of a recap, in this episode we've looked again at drawing horizontal and vertical lines to a given length. We've looked at the offset tool quite extensively and how that can be really useful in creating parallel geometries. We've also looked at the move tool and the mirror tool, as well as revisiting the trimming tool. So there's quite a lot there. It's worth going back, reviewing the video several times, but more importantly, having a go at drawing yourself. Practice these skills because they're fundamental to everything that's going to come in future. So thank you for watching, and I hope you found that useful. Now, I've been getting questions cropping up in the comment section and also via email, and it occurred to me that it might be a nice idea to do a dedicated sort of Q&A video where I'll try and answer as many of the questions that come in as I can, or highlight those that I can't answer, because I know there's quite a few experts watching this and maybe somebody else might be able to chime in with some good answers. So if you have any questions for me for the next episode, then do please leave them in the comments section or send me an email, and I'll be delighted to try and answer them. Anyway, until next time, thank you for watching. Bye bye.